Hello, I am Casey with a public service announcement on domestic violence. When you hear the term domestic violence, it is usually associated with physical assault. However, we must not overlook the psychological manipulation and sexual abuse forms of domestic violence. Let's take a minute and look over some data. According to the Domestic Violence Hotline, on average, 33% of women and 25% of men will experience rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate or domestic partner. 10% of high school age children were victims of physical violence at the hand of a dating partner in 2019. 20% of college-age women have been verbally abused, and 16% have been sexually abused during a dating relationship. Victims of digital harassment, often referred to as cyberbullying, are more likely to receive psychological or physical abuse. And lastly, close to 30% of women and 10% of men who have experienced a form of domestic violence later report that it has a lasting negative impact on their lives. As we can see by the data, domestic violence can and usually does start at an early age, but will affect every age group, economic class, race, and gender. On average, over 12 million people in the United States experience a form of domestic violence each year. As I mentioned, there are different forms of domestic violence, so let's explore them in greater detail. According to national stats, the most common form is psychological aggression, also known as mental or emotional abuse. Nearly half of all men and women have been abused psychologically by a partner or family member in their life. This may include name-calling, public embarrassment, belittling, among other ways destroying self-esteem. The abuser may make threats or treat you in a childish manner to assert control and dominance. They will most likely deny their actions or say that it's just a joke and will likely make you feel codependent upon them so they can maintain their control. While it may not seem as harsh as physical or sexual abuse, mental abuse will usually have a stronger negative impact on the victim's life for a longer period of time, especially when it goes unreported. The second most common type of domestic violence is physical abuse. 13% of men and nearly a quarter of women have been severely injured by a partner in their lifetime. While most physical abuse involves pain, it may also be in the form of withholding food, sleep, or care, or could possibly involve locking one in or out of the house or room. The third most common form is sexual abuse. About 10% of women in the United States report being raped by an intimate partner. And in approximately 80% of all rape cases, the victim knows the attacker. However, not all sexual abuse is forced sex. The abuser may make the victim dress in a sexual manner, guilt them into sexual favors, or intentionally spread an STD. Please note that while sexual abuse may seem to be the least common form of domestic violence, we can only have data for cases that are reported. As of 2015, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, law enforcement was notified of 56% of domestic violence cases in the U.S., and in 40% of those reported cases, arrests were made. 76% of the cases were reported by the victim, and 24% were reported by an acquaintance or witness. In 2013, nearly half of law enforcement agencies operate a full-time domestic violence unit. However, cases cannot be investigated and problems cannot be resolved if the victimization goes unreported. According to the National Crime Victimization Survey, 32% of cases went unreported due to the personal nature of the crime. 21% was out of protection for the offender. 20% of the victims felt it was unimportant, and 19% feared retaliation from the abuser or others. If you or a loved one are experiencing any type of mental, physical, or sexual abuse, do not hesitate to contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233 or the hotline.org. We strongly encourage victims to report these incidents to law enforcement and do not feel ashamed or afraid to share details. Your case will be conducted and investigated in the most confidential manner possible. Remember to document as much as possible. This will greatly aid the investigation and can help lead to an arrest. We so strongly encourage you to break the feeling of dependence on your abuser. He or she will not change their ways, and the situation will continue to worsen. We encourage communities and churches to offer outreaches to victims and their families and expand their current offerings for child care and counseling. We must work together to bring this crisis to an end.